Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. This is Mr. Smith, and this is 2.16 factored form. Okay. In this video, we're going to deal with factored form, like the title says. One thing I noticed right away was this formula is actually different from what I gave you 2 lessons ago. I had x plus p and x plus q. You can use either formula as long as you know that whatever's in the brackets needs to be set to 0, and that'll give you what your zeros are. So in red, P or Q. Positive P, because P minus P will give you 0, or positive Q minus Q will give you 0. If you're using the blue, which I don't recommend, but to keep it consistent, I'm going to include blue, negative P and negative Q. And I probably shouldn't have done a bracket because that makes it look like a point there. So let's not do that. Perfect. Okay. Oops. Okay. My axis of symmetry is going to be halfway between the two zeros. So in this case, you add them together, P and Q, divide by 2. Or if you're using blue, negative... Oh, something's going on. If you're using blue, negative P plus negative Q divided by 2. This is why I recommend using the red in this case instead of what I'm writing, but I want to keep it consistent. All right, standard form from factored form to go from standard form to factored form, you use factoring. You guys might remember the Xbox method, that was one of them, or the MAN method, which was an acronym for multiplication, addition, and numbers. Common first, then double bracket method, or the Xbox method. Okay. First question, find the zeros for negative 2, negative x, or negative 2x squared, negative 8x plus 64. And to do this, we take out a common factor first, and we are left with negative 2 out in front. We have x squared plus 4x minus 32. So it's going to multiply to negative 32. It's going to add to positive 4, and the numbers that you get. What numbers multiply to negative 32 but add to 4? If you said positive 8 and negative 4, you are correct. So you are left with, there we go there. So therefore your zeros are, well, you set this bracket to equal 0, so it should be positive 4 and negative 8. Perfect. All right, next example. The profit earned by a company in thousands of dollars is given by the formula P is equal to this, where X is the number of thingamajigs sold in hundreds. How many thingamajigs needs to be sold for the company to break even? Okay, so 2 steps to this. First, take out a common factor. Alrighty then. So we're going to take out a common factor here. So you get y is equal to negative 10 is the greatest common factor we can take out. So we will be left with 2x squared minus 25x plus 50. Okay, then we set up our Xbox method. It's going to add to 100, multiply to negative, or it's going to multiply to 100, add to negative 25. And just to recall, this is the first term times the third term, or A times C, and this is just our second term here, which is B. And what 2 numbers multiply to 100 but add to negative 25? Well, if I give you one of them, negative 5 should be pretty straightforward, negative 20 over here. Perfect. Then we have our box set up over here. And then we put our A value, so we have 2x squared. and then our two values that we're given. So we could put minus 5x and minus 20x here, and then 50x over here, or 50, just 50, not 50x. Then we take out the greatest common factors. Well, 2x would be the greatest common factor here. Greatest common factor between negative 5 and 5. Well, negative 5. And then we're going to take out our greatest common factor horizontally here. You can do this up or down, whichever way you want. I'm going to do this horizontally now. So 2x squared minus 5x. X is actually our greatest common factor. And then the greatest common factor between negative 20x and 50 is actually just negative 10. Okay. So those are our two brackets now. So we have y equals to negative 10. 2x minus 5 times x minus 10, which means that x is going to equal 2.5, because 5 over 2 would be one of them, and positive 10. So the company needs to sell 100 times that. So that'd be 2.5 times 100, which is 250, and then 10 times 100 gives us 1,000. When I reveal it, we get 250 and 1,000 thingamajigs. Now that's how you do the Xbox method. I hope that that refreshes your memory. I believe there is a question in a later lesson that I have you factor, but I'm going to jump over the Xbox method for that just to save on time. Okay, next example in 3, 2, 1. Okay, find the equation of the parabola shown. We're given our two zeros. So we're given negative 10 here, because this is halfway between negative 20 and 0. That means that each unit here is 5, so that means this is positive 5 and 0. This also means that our point down here is negative 5 for the x value, because it's halfway between the 0 and the negative 10, and negative 5. So we need to figure out the equation. Well, we start with our factored form. We're going to have y equals a times x plus 10 in brackets and x plus 5 in brackets. Or minus 5, because it has to be the opposite value of your x values. Okay, then we can sub in our third point, which is negative 5, negative 5. And then we solve for a. So negative 5 plus 10, that's 5. Negative 5 minus 5 here is going to be negative 10. So we'll end up with negative 50. So we have negative 5 equals a times negative 50. Divide both sides by negative 50. You should get 0.1 is equal to a. So we sub that back into our original equation, and we'll have y equals 0.1 times those brackets. All right. So now we're going to build off of this in our next example, which we're going to in 3, 2, 1. All right, final example for the factored form lesson. A soccer ball is kicked off the ground and travels in a parabolic arc until it lands 7 seconds later. On the way up, it took 2 seconds for the ball to reach a height of 8 meters. What is the maximum height of the ball? Okay. So it's kicked off the ground, so we know it's going to start at 0, 0. It lands on the ground 7 seconds later. And we're given a third point, so at 2 seconds, the height was 8 meters. So we're given a third point here, which is 2, 8. Okay, and now we need to figure out the maximum height. Well, we start with our factored form using these two, so we'll have x times, will be y equals ax times x minus 7. There we go. Or x minus 0. You could just write that as x, and that would be fine. Next, we're going to sub in this point to 8. So 2 for the x value, 8 for the y value. And then we're going to solve for a. So you're going to get 2 in this bracket, and then you're going to get negative 5. So you'll have negative 10 is equal, negative 10a is equal to 8. Divide both sides by negative 10. You should get negative 0.8 is equal to a. So now we have this formula here. I didn't write the minus 0 because that's kind of unnecessary. Now we need to figure out the maximum height. Well, to do that, we need to figure out the x value of the maximum height. When is it going to reach the maximum height? Well, it's going to be halfway between 0 and 7. So halfway between 0 and 7 is 3.5, and we did that by adding the 2 zeros and then dividing by 2. So 3.5. We're going to sub in 3.5 back into the original equation now. So you'll have negative 0.8 times 3.5 times 3.5 minus 7, which is exactly what's here. Just solve for y now. Do your multiplication, you get 9.8. Therefore, the maximum height of the ball is 9.8 meters, and it occurred at 3.5 seconds. It doesn't ask when it happens, just asks what the maximum height is. So this is a perfectly valid therefore statement. Okay, that should be enough. If you need to do a little bit of review of factoring, you can always go back and watch those videos. They should be done and still up on the website. If you have any questions about the practice, make sure to post them in the forum, and best of luck. Sorry if I went a little quick, but time is a little bit strained here.